I'm cooking for my whole crew. Stay scrumptious, y'all. Bye.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another wonderful edition of the Scrumptious Sandwich Show. I am your host with the most, Andrew Brown, and I just want to say thank you all for making it this far. We're at episode 6, the season 1 finale. Give it up for that, give it up for that, give it up for that. All right, now, I want to take one more second to say thank you all so much for riding through this journey with me. It's been amazing and a pleasure, and I wouldn't have it any other way in the world. If you guys end up making any of these sandwiches, if you guys have any ideas about anything, if you guys have any further things you think could make season 2 better, please do not forget, comment them under this video, subscribe to the channel, like all the videos, and follow us on all our other socials too. We'll be posting lots of content. And if you guys recreate any of these sandwiches, you might even get a repost from us. Don't forget about that. And feel free to reach out to us there if you have any ideas or collaborations or anything that can make this show better. Please, we want to build community around this show. I want to reach out to y'all. You guys are why I do this. Other than that, I get to eat delicious sandwiches. But I also enjoy you guys very much as well. So please, 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 I genuinely want you to reach out to me and tell me how you think we could make this journey and adventure even better the second time around. But on to the next part. I will be making a delicious Reuben sandwich, and the corned beef that will be coming from it today is a recipe straight from my brother Brandon Lutzi, who is an amazing and incredible award-winning chef and mixologist who owns a restaurant called Whiskey Business Bar and Grill in the Caribbean, in St. Thomas, the US Virgin Islands to be exact. Now, if you are ever down there, I beg of you, I implore you, go to it. It is the best food, best drinks in the whole Caribbean. You will not be disappointed. So please, if you get a chance, support local businesses down there when you're on vacation. But enough of that, we're gonna get right into this sandwich because I am so psyched to get this one done. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, now we're on to the next step in this process, and that is brining the brisket. We're gonna combine all the stuff that we've already learned in our previous episodes to be able to make this delicious, delicious recipe here. All right, now, what you're gonna want, first and foremost, a delicious cut of beef brisket right here, and a big enough pot that you can fill with a substantial amount of water. Because we're brining, again, make sure it is all thoroughly cleaned and sanitized so that there's no improper bacteria or anything that will grow, cause any problems in here. So what you wanna do is take your brisket, open it up, take a look at it, marvel at how delicious and incredible it is. Shout out to Pasturetoplate, always coming through in the clutch. You're just gonna take that little brisket out right there, throw it right in the bottom of the pot again. I'll wash my hands because I am not a heathen. I'm not trying to kill anyone here. All right, so the next step in the process is you're going to want to make sure that you can cover the brisket with enough water that is going to be fully submerged in at least an inch. This is all based upon gallons. So the amounts exactly will change based on exactly how many gallons it takes to fully submerge your brisket. And if you live somewhere where gallons aren't always necessarily what's up to par, 2 liters, so 4 liters is about exactly the same as a gallon. So in we go with 1 2-liter. Fill up a second. So if you're keeping track again, that is 1 gallon or 4 liters of water that we are gonna put into this to make sure that our brisket is nice and good and submerged in there. All right, now, next we are going to add 1 cup of sugar. 1 cup of sugar. Again, this is all based on gallons. So if you do 2 gallons, 2 cups, 3, you get the picture. Play by ear off of that. 1 cup of sugar. You're gonna wanna get 2 cups pickling salts. You can use any kind of salt that is non-iodized and doesn't have any kind of caking agents. Something like any type of kosher salt, Himalayan pink. I find that pickling salts work the best, but anything, again, that doesn't have any caking agents that isn't going to mess with what you've got going on in your brine is going to be what you're going to want to go with here. Next thing in, you're gonna want to put in some vinegar, distilled, the regular old clear kind. Next, you're also gonna want to put in some of the spicy kind. That's right, apple cider vinegar. Everyone loves some of that. 1 cup of that in as well. And again, just as a reminder, all of these things are per gallon. I'm only doing 1 because it is only 1. All of these things will go up depending on the amount of meat and the amount of water necessary. And last but not least, we have the crucial, final necessary thing, and that is a pre-made blend of Reuben spices that I got from the butcher, and let me tell you, it is exquisite. Now, you can go out and buy all your own ingredients, and I will show those all right here. And that is traditionally what would go into brining a Reuben. But if you can find the pre-made stuff, it's gonna be just as good. And you'll save yourself a lot of time and headaches. So according to the recipe on here, throw in 1 cup Reuben spices into the mix. And now that that's all in there, all we gotta do is give this some time, let it sit for at least 4 to 5 days, and let it think about what it's done, and let it ruminate and soak all that stuff up. So we'll come back later when this is all ready. I'm gonna throw this right in the fridge right now. All right. On to the next step now. I got this beautiful, beautiful head, I think? Lump of head, yeah, all right, good, confirmed. Head of cabbage that we got here. It's looking great, already freshly washed and everything. I'm just gonna peel off a few little undesirables here, but we're gonna use this to make our sauerkraut. Now, first thing you're gonna wanna do before we get into that, just take a big old chunk like this, save it out for later. Trust me, that may seem random, but it will come in handy. Now, you got your whole cabbage. Before you start cutting it up, I'm gonna introduce you to another kitchen essential that you need. Bam! Mini kitchen scale. Very, very helpful for this particular recipe right here. What you're gonna wanna do, turn it on first. There we go. All right, getting it up and going. All right, let's try that again. So what you're gonna do is take your handy dandy kitchen scale here, you're gonna take your head of cabbage, you're gonna plop it right down on there. So we have 141.8 grams of cabbage. Yeah, 141.8 grams of cabbage. So what you're gonna wanna do is from that math, that is how you were gonna determine how much salt you need for your sauerkraut blend. So what you're gonna do is take 2% of that, and that is how much in weight you are gonna need. And give me 1 second, we're gonna have to go to the good old handy dandy calculator because I cannot do that math off the top of my head. So 2.8, so we need 2.8 grams. Again, this will fluctuate depending on how much exactly you need in yours. Take that. That was way too much on that pour. Just don't want to make sure you get too much salt because you will end up advancing this way beyond the necessary stages that you need. But also you want to make sure you have enough salt in order to properly preserve and ferment the sauerkraut. Almost there. Boom. There we go. Now we've got our Now we've got our 2 grams of kosher salt that we need right here to make our sauerkraut. So we'll get all this out of the way, make sure we got a clear space. Next, what you're gonna wanna do is take a nice bowl, apparatus, whatever you need, anything, just something that is clean. You wanna make sure it is all clean, sterilized, not dirty or anything like that, because you don't want to get any other kinds of bacterias in here other than the good ones that we are going to be trying to build up with this. And set that bowl over to the side. Take your knife, take your head of cabbage, and you are going to quarter that bad boy. Cut them right down there. Cut your cabbage into 4 quarters. Now, you can see this little guy here, that's your core. You can leave that in, but I prefer not to. So, cut that right out as well. Get that core out of here. And now another fun fact is that although this is what we're making called sauerkraut, and that is quite possibly the most obviously German word I've ever heard of in my life, it's not actually originally a German creation. It was first actually done by the Chinese, and it dates all the way back to the days when the Great Walls of China was being built. Isn't that crazy? You know, preserving food with salts in this kind of manner is one of the oldest forms of fermentation, and people still do it to this day with delicious results. So, now that you have your cabbages in 4 quarters right now, what you're gonna do is take it, you shred it. You could use a mandolin, you could use a food processor, but I think the best results will come from getting a knife. You just want it to be a little bit thinner. You don't want it to be super thick. I mean, I guess you can. Again, that's all personal preference, but I prefer to have some thinly cut. So after you get one cut up, you're just gonna put those quarters in there. And then you're gonna take a little bit of your salt, sprinkle it in to start the process. And then you're gonna repeat. As you can tell, this is very wet, soluble vegetable right now, and that will come into play in the final part. So now that I've got all of my cabbage in here, I'm gonna make sure all the rest of my salt is into this cabbagey mixture. Let me get my hands a quick rinse off real quick before we get nice and into the next part. So now that you got all your cabbage here and it's already salted, make sure your hands are clean, fresh and dry. It's the day that you met it, because you are gonna get real close and personal with your cabbage here. That's right. Start giving it good massage. Now this could take a few minutes. Could take up to 15 to 20 minutes. But what you want to do is just consistently keep massaging this cabbage. Start beginning to let breaking down the salt will get into the cell walls of the plant, and it will begin to break down, and it will release a lot of moisture. It will start to get much smaller and shrink in size. So even if you have a smaller bowl like I do, it should still be able to fit. All right, now, I've been doing this for about 20 minutes, and as you can see, the cabbage has greatly reduced in size. It's begun to tamper itself down, and it started releasing a bunch of moisture and brine. That is a crucial part of the pickling process. All right, sweat doing that. Now, I'm just gonna come over here and get a good old mason jar. You can also do it in a crock. I could even do it in this bowl, but I prefer to ferment my stuff in mason jars. Actually, you just need anything that it's big enough that it will be able to fit all of this in without overflowing, and that it will be able to be sunk down in its brine. And you'll know what I mean when I see this next. Again, something wooden. No metals or anything like that, because it'll mess up this process. But what we're gonna do is begin transferring the cabbage into the jar. And when we do, we're gonna pat it down tight, real tight. Gonna keep on repeating this process by adding more and more cabbage. Just keep on patting down that kraut, baby. And as you can see again, starting to decompose, starting to get exactly that look that we want it to be. You can even ferment this for weeks and weeks on end. It depends on how sour you like your sauerkraut. But it'll also probably be ready to eat in about 4 to 5 days, depending on a number of different factors, such as how hot it is where you are, how cold it is where you are, what kind of areas you're storing it in, what kind of things it's in. Again, you want to remember these are living things that you are messing with, so don't skimp on anything. Make sure you're being safe. Some of the brine is starting to come up, which is crucial to this recipe. Again, you can start seeing that briny liquid beginning to come up. And again, that's important because you want to make sure that your cabbage days submerged in that brine. So even if when you put it in, it's not quite there like mine is, just pat it down some more, get it to release more of that water, and you'll start to get more brine that'll come out of it. Now that has been good and tampered down, what you're gonna wanna do is take that leftover piece of cabbage that you had on the side, tear it to about the size of the hole that you got, put it right down on top of everything else. Now, I'm gonna take a second mason jar. Again, you're gonna want something that is clean, that is clear, and non-porous. No metals, only stones that are specifically non-porous, nothing that'll hold any bacteria or anything like that in it. And you, we'll be right back. All right, well, that didn't work. So we're gonna use a different, smaller jar. But all you need to do, again, is something glass is preferable, but anything that is not porous, that will hold anything that you don't want in here. And what you're gonna do is just take that. I filled it up with some water too to give it a little bit extra weight. And you're just gonna pat it right down on top of that as a weight to make sure it holds down all the rest of that kraut. You're gonna take a jar, you're gonna seal it up. And now, with this, you actually don't need to sit it with a tight seal. If you do, make sure that you burp it at least once a day. That way it'll release out some of the fermented gases and everything like that, and you won't explode your mason jar. You can also just put a towel on top of it or use a jar with a valve on the lid. There's multiple different ways you can go about it. Just make sure you are safe and don't destroy any of your stuff. You're gonna wanna keep this someplace cool and dark for as long as you really want. You could do it up to 6 months, but after about 4 or 5 days, you should start trying it, and then you can just keep fermenting it until it acquires your exact level of tankiness. So I'm gonna go put this in my closet right now. Thanks, y'all. Been brining for 4 to 5 days, and it is ready to start the cooking process and turning it into some delicious corned beef. Now, let's get right into here. This is what that whole mixed up solution and everything should be looking like. Again, you wanna keep track of your hands in this situation. But oh, look at that nice piece of meat. You wanna make sure you get all of the drippings off of it before you send it into your crock. And then you wanna make sure you take some water and fill it up enough so that you cover your brisket all the way. You wanna make sure you cover your brisket in water at least by 1/2 inch to 1 inch so that it'll be fully submerged and gets under that good hot cooking water. All right. That took a couple more times than I thought it was going to, but now with this last cup of water, we should have enough water to completely submerge our brisket. And then one more thing of extra spice that I like to add, go right back into that pickling liquid, take 2 cups out of it, add that right into your mix. That's gonna give it a nice extra level of seasoning and spice that's really gonna make this fully worth it. So now your brisket is going to be ready to cook. Now that we've got our brisket fully submerged in the rest of that brine and water, we're gonna wanna take it here and put it in our crock pot to cook for 6 to 8 hours, depending on how big or how fatty your cut of brisket is. Now, mine isn't super big and super fatty, so I'm thinking it's gonna lean more toward the 6-hour mark, but I'll let you know and get back to that when we get on the other end. Oh, and on high too. You wanna make sure your crock pot is set to high, not low, when you're cooking this one here, because it's gonna need all of that to help liquefy and break it down right to where we need it to be. Into the crock we go. All right, now we've had our brisket cooking in our crock pot for about 4.5 hours. Now, once you hit this mark where you have about 1:45, 1:30 left in what you think is gonna take for your brisket to cook, you're gonna wanna take a pan, throw a little bit of butter in it, melt that good stuff right down in there, and then you're gonna wanna take a couple of shallots and we're gonna cut them up, slice them and dice them, and throw them in here and get them good and browned up. Now you're gonna wanna do that low and slow. Keep it low on your burner because you don't wanna burn these too quickly. You don't wanna burn the butter either. We wanna get a nice, good caramelization and browning going on with these shallots. So after I slice them up, I'm gonna throw them in here with the butter with a little bit of pinch of sugar and a splash of the white wine that we also use to throw in there, which by the way, I threw a cup of that white wine also into this brine here earlier. I originally forgot to do that, but luckily I remembered and we saved it with enough time. So once this gets good and browned, we're gonna throw that in as well for the last hour, and then we'll be ready and good to go. You wanna get good, nice little long ways sections of these guys. All right, now it's been about 25 minutes and these shallots are starting to get nice and browned up how we want them. You can see they've got that good caramelization on them, and that's what you get from cooking them low and slow. Do not try and be quick with it or you're gonna end up burning them. But we're gonna take these guys right here and I'm gonna put them over in the slow cooker right behind me for the last hour of cooking to give just an extra boost of flavor into our corned beef here. Scoop-dee scoop, scoop-dee, scoop-dee whoop, whoop-dee scoop-dee poop. All right, give that a little mix around in there. And let that sit for one more hour. Okay, now, while we got our last hour left to cook on our corned beef, we're gonna be making the Russian dressing that is gonna be the dressing for our Reuben. It's a nice, tangy, and spicy sauce. Another very traditional one that they oftentimes will use with the Reuben is Thousand Island dressing. And I don't prefer it. It's just not my vibe. You know, how about you guys? Tell me in the comments, what do you guys prefer in your Reubens? Thousand Island dressing or Russian dressing? You'll have to let me know. But today, I am gonna go with the Russian dressing. So here's how we do that. We're gonna start off 2 heaping tablespoons of mayonnaise. We're gonna wanna get about roughly, that's definitely going in there, 1 tablespoon of ketchup.
Mission failed. We'll get 'em next time.
Try to have better aim with your ketchup than I do, but that's what you're gonna wanna go for. Then dabble in a little bit of hot sauce. I'm using sriracha because that's my personal preference, but anything like a Frank's Red Hot or Tabasco also works super well. Few little dabbles of Worcestershire sauce. The secret ingredient, 1 nice teaspoon of horseradish. Boom, all going in there. Then sprinkle it over the top with a little spicing of paprika, a little spicing of salt, and then you just mix it all together. Get everyone good and comfortable and feeling nice with each other. And I know this is like a weird color that they don't find anywhere in nature, and I'm fully aware of that, but trust me, it's gonna be absolutely delicious. It's gonna add a nice layer of kick to your Reuben. It's gonna be very necessary. So, once that's all good and mixed up together like so, set that aside and wait for your Reuben to be ready to go, baby. All right, everybody, now we are at the magical moment in time. Our brisket has been cooking for 6 hours and it's up to temp at 195. Now, I know that sounds very, very hot for some, but at that point, the fat will just liquefy and it will make your meat that much tender and delicious. So we're gonna pull it right out of this bad boy real quick. Look at that juicy hunk of meat right there. Yum. That looks absolutely spectacular. Gonna get right in here. Start cutting it up a little bit. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Okay. Now, you guys know what time it is. You know what my favorite part of this thing is we are going to assemble this here delicious Reuben sandwich. But first, I forgot to mention this earlier, so I want to bring some attention to it. But here we've got our beautiful fermented sauerkraut. Now, I fermented it for about 4 days because it's been very hot here in Vancouver recently. It was able to ferment quicker and quicker. Usually it takes around 5 to 7 days to fully ferment, but after 3 to 4, you can start trying it, and if it's achieved your level of tanginess, it's all good to go. So now, without further ado, let's get right into building this thing. First, you're gonna take 2 slices of rye bread, butter them on both sides. You're gonna take this right here, some good Swiss cheese. All of these have gotta be what I'm saying they are, Swiss cheese. Put it right on the bottom here. Take some of that brisket, that corned beef brisket. Pile it on in good heapings. Grab some of this nice, beautiful sauerkraut. Pile that on top to your delight. Then finish it off by putting on the inside some of that nice, tangy, spicy Russian dressing. And then put the 2 sides together and get ready to toast it immediately. It should be back and ready to go in a couple of minutes here. We'll see how it looks once it's toasted. I am so excited for this. It's gonna be so good. All right, here we are. The final sandwich of season 1, the delicious Reuben. It is now time. We have it assembled. I'm gonna taste it. There's one more thing that this is missing out on. A nice espresso stout from Fuggles and Warlock. This is another amazing design. It's a very full-bodied beer for a very full-bodied sandwich. So I think these two are gonna be a perfect pairing with each other. That might be my favorite one yet. That's a good one. Hoping the same for this here sandwich. So now we'll get to the moment of truth. I always cut my sandwiches on the diagonal. I wanna know what you people think about that too. But let's get into it, shall we? Ooh, hoo, hoo, hoo. Look at that beautiful cross section in there. All right, I'm going in, people. Tastes exactly like the Reubens I always remember. I have an uncle, my Uncle Chris. Shout out to him. Definitely one of my favorites. And his favorite sandwich is the Reuben. So that's why I wanted to end it off today with this amazing sandwich. And as we do, season 1 comes to a close. I just want to thank everybody who has viewed this season so far. I want to thank my extremely talented crew, all of the guests who came in today, and all of our sponsors, Pasture to Plate, Fuggles and Warlock. All of their info will be provided down below. And without every single person here, we would not be able to do this show. So I thank you so much, and let you know this is not the end. We will keep doing this. We'll be back live and direct after a short break. But for now, season 1 is closed. So until next time, stay scrumptious, y'all.